Welcome to today's edition of Frozen Ohio Tundra Problem Channel, where everything goes horribly wrong all the time, it seems like. But John Davis, Lachlan Island Farms, back on the farm today. It is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I finally got my tractor back up and running. If you've been following the weather, this is July. Oh my gosh, I wish. This is January 24th, 2025. And we just went through a major freeze. And this John Deere 5085E is one of those pieces of equipment, no matter whether or not it has treated fuel or whatever, it just plumb freezes up when it gets that cold. And once it freezes, we're in big trouble. So for those of you who don't know diesel engines, diesel fuel gels at a not so low temperature, usually around 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it gels, it clogs up the fuel filters, the injectors, and the engine plumb don't run. So the tractor got pretty much parked in the barnyard until we could get it warmed up and get it going. And I finally just got that done. So I'm going to be headed over the hill today. I'm going to be working on the road over the hill and do a flyby of it, get some cool stuff. But come along with me. I've got to grab the loader bucket, I've got to use the loader on the tractor to grab the digging bucket that goes on the excavator. That's what that thing's called. And once I have that, I can put it on the tractor or on the excavator and start digging this road and making it work. So let's get this thing going and go from there. That fits pretty well. I think that spiky bit's gonna go through that hole, and if I go real slow like, all I gotta do is get up the driveway to put this thing in the back of the RTV. Alrighty, you all know my favorite song. Sing it along with me now. Da, 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 da. Hope I get away with it. Oh, do da day. Now, come on. Come on. I don't like that. Wait. Disengage. Disengage. This engage. Well, it's stuck in the hole. Can we do that? That good now? Aha! Ha 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 ha! We did it. Step 2 of this process is being able to get this thing out of here. I don't know how much this bucket weighs, but it's a fair amount. Ideally, I could just get it out by scooting it. Hello, tree. I mean, it's only probably 200 pounds. What's the worst that could happen if I drop it on myself? Obviously, want to avoid that. Let's see. We're going to want to have it oriented that way. Yeet. All right. That worked. Oh. Okay, that little bit of heartburn's out of the way. This turned out really nice. You can see it a little bit better now with the sunlight. Check that out. A lot of those trees are gonna come down, but I don't know if you guys had ever seen, sorry, I'm kind of moving the tripod here. I don't know if you guys had ever seen this prior, but that was all, what's that stuff called? Oh, barberry, and down trees and snags and just a disaster of stuff. And same over here. You can see the tape. A lot of that tape's not accurate. I actually need to change some of that, but this was just a disaster of hawthorn and all kinds of stuff. This thing has been cold soaking down here for like a week because it's been so darn cold. Curious to see if it actually starts. I hope it starts. I have work to do. Ugh. All right. See how this looks in here. Let's see. All right. Key. Glow plugs are going to be like, please, for the love of God, give us time to heat. I got fuel. That's good. Contact. Oh, yes. Thank you, darling. All right. Get this guy going. Heck yeah. It has been a lifelong dream of mine to open up not only this road, but this entire creek bottom. My entire life I've been looking at it, going, oh my gosh, I was trying to visualize what my parents could see and my grandparents had seen, where this used to be hay pasture for cows, and there were no trees, or very little trees. The entire thing was open, and it was all pasture. It was basically clear-cut, like most of Ohio was during the early, let me see, that would be the 19th century. And just a totally different space than it is now. This road used to be the original road that we lived on, or at least so I was told. It's an old road, and for a long time, when my grandparents were on the property, it was a cow path. So they would take the cows down the driveway. There was a dairy farm, take the cows down the driveway, and then they would move them from one side of the property to the other using this road, and they'd use this road for access up and down into the creek bottom. It's the Little Beaver Creek that runs in the creek bottom there. This road used to be in such good shape that my dad would take his 66 Mustang and drive it down the road to get into the creek bottom. And imagine there were no trees. It was something. And I apologize, by the way, if I'm juking back and forth with the drone. It's setting off the collision alarms because there are branches everywhere. So I took my brand new drone that cost all this money, and here I am about to fly it into trees, or I'm trying my best not to fly it into trees. So the up and down jerky back and forth is because it's going beep, 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 and it's, a near disaster. There's so much history on this road. I can imagine the early settlers there in the part of Ohio where we live, which is near Lisbon, Ohio. It was so hard to travel that all these communities were very self-sufficient. The oldest records that we have date back to pre-Civil War, and we had a post office, we had a general store, we had a sawmill, and we had what I think was a grist mill. And part of the old mill race runs through our property here. And all that stuff just existed because people, it's 7 or 8 miles into town. That's a long way when you don't have modern automobiles. So we had all this stuff. And I know further on the other side of our property, you wouldn't be able to tell now unless you were looking, but there's a road that goes straight down to the bottom of the hill called Sawmill Road. And my neighbor, he had the old sawmill on his property, and he's found bits and pieces from the old sawmill buried in the dirt when he's out working in the fields or doing whatever. So just a ton of history. Every time you see one of these little rises like I'm coming up on right now, these are old coal mines. So this is a glacier hill that we live on top of. And this whole area, we're in the foothills of the Appalachians. This whole area, see, there's one of those sticks that I almost ran into. This whole area, the underground is full of coal, just a huge amount of coal. And imagine, too, there were no trees because prior to the Civil War, people came through and they clear-cut all the old forests because that's the timber that built the East Coast. So all these trees were gone. And because there were not a lot of trees, people had to heat their homes in the winter. It's not like they had natural gas or propane. So they would mine coal out of these hillsides. And we're coming up on another one here. There's 2 really old coal mines, and then there's one that my great-grandfather or my grandfather actually took coal out of themselves. And there were these tiny little tunnels, no higher than maybe 3 feet, if that. And my uncle says they may have been shorter. And they'd go in on their backs on these little carts. And they would, pick coal and then bring it out. And they'd be hundreds of feet back under the hillside. There's no bracing. There's no, whatever. There's nothing, right? Just different types of men back then. These old trees that you see on the right side, there's that one, and there's one that's not in this video, but there's one up the hill to the left that is just a gigantic old tree. But before that, see all these pine trees? These are not native. My great-grandfather, they called him Pap, he planted those pine trees, or planted some pine trees, not all of them, way back when, because he liked pine trees and he thought they were soft. I always thought these were native, and no, that is the legacy of my great-grandfather. And they are soft. It's a beautiful place to be. The deer love being in there. I love being in there. And, Pap really planted something for the later generations. There's a big old tree that I mentioned before up the hill there that my mom would ride the dairy cows up from the creek bottom because they had to come home every day to get milked. God bless my family, all of them, uncles, grandma, grandpa on my mom's side. Milking and dairy is no small thing, but when the cows would come up, my mom would ride one of the cows because she's awesome like that,
and this big old tree. I'll have to take a picture of it at some point. I'm not exaggerating. It's probably 7 or 8 feet around. Seriously. The cows would rub up against it because that's what cows do, and she'd have to pull her feet up on top of the cows so that they wouldn't, so that she wouldn't get smooshed, which is pretty funny, right? So, I'll have to get a picture of that tree. It's something else. That one's been there for a few hundred years. All of my ancestors would know that tree, and probably people who predated me. A lot of this land was given as Revolutionary War leases for veterans who were in the Revolutionary War, and that's how the government paid them. And a very famous Civil War battle was fought literally right across the valley from our house. If you sit on the front porch of the old farmhouse, you could see Morgan's Raiders engaging with the Lisbon militia when the Lisbon militia came out of town to meet them, and just a lot of history. What an amazing place that we live in.
I know probably the thing that really separates the actual operators from amateurs like me is smoothness. See how my controls are still jerky? That is because I'm over controlling, and that's what's happening. It's interesting. There's a lot of similarities between equipment operation and airplane operation. I have my private pilot's license, although I don't fly anymore for a number of reasons. But you know, the number one thing when I was not a flight instructor, but you know, I'd take people flying, let them take the controls, and I'd always tell them like, hey, don't over control the airplane. The airplanes are meant to, those control surfaces, just like these hydraulics, are sensitive, and you can get into an oscillation where you're over controlling, overcompensating, and at the very least, it's not exciting for your passengers. It's also dangerous. We're probably 200 yards in, and I widened it out so we can fit the tractor on it, and the ground's actually shockingly frozen, so some of this I'm gonna have to come back and sure regrade it. But again, it's a tractor road, not a car road, and whatever else. I'll have to hit this little, got a high spot here, I'll hit that tomorrow. It's amazing, even stuff that looks kind of flat is most definitely not flat, right? So there might be a little bit of old roadbed under here. I don't know. Some of this stuff, it's hard to tell when it's all frozen up, but we're getting there. Those 2 trees right there, they're going to come out tomorrow. So just knocking trees down, getting stuff done. Whew, that's a day. Well, just wanted to thank you again. Thank you for watching. LaughlinHighlandsFarm.com. And this is a pretty darn good day. I like it. So happy Friday to you. God bless you. And order meat. See ya.